Right, so we're still live and direct from Malaysia Auto Show 2025, and Chery Malaysia has shown up to the show with a bunch of new hybrid models, including this one. This is the new Chery Tiggo Cross HEV. Alright, so in terms of design from the get-go, you can see that the Malaysian-bound Tiggo Cross looks somewhat similar to both its Chinese and the Indonesian counterpart, because this car is based on the facelifted Chery Tiggo 4 model. Okay, at the front here you get this very typical Tiggo front face featuring sharp LED headlights, and if you notice, the front grille very closely resemble the one that we saw on the Chery Tiggo 7 Pro. So overall, this car looks pretty nice and it's quite familiar if you ask me. Alright, so now we're inside the Chery Tiggo Cross, but mind you, this is not the final Malaysian spec model, so but at least we can expect to see what kind of things we're gonna get later. Okay, at the front you get this typical dual display setup featuring one for the infotainment, and of course the infotainment supports both wireless and the auto and Apple CarPlay. Meanwhile, there's also a fully digital meter cluster here. No HUD however, but of course the good thing about this car is actually it retains a lot of physical buttons and control. For example, you get the buttons for the infotainment adjustment here, and you also get a third dedicated display just for the climate control, which is good to see because you get your own split display instead of sharing with the infotainment. But other thing is feels quite at home. You still got physical gear shifter, the steering wheel has a lot of buttons, and the two sporty seats looks very similar to the one we saw on the Chery Tiggo 7. But of course, you don't have any sunroof here. But overall, this car looks and feels very familiar with other Chery Tiggo models. Alright, at the back seat of the Tiggo Cross, you can see space is surprisingly quite okay despite the small size of this SUV. As you can see, I still got plenty of legroom and quite ample headroom, surprisingly. But at the back here, you got the same 4 leather wrap seats at the front one, but of course you got amenities like this single aircon vent, and there's one USB charging port, so meaning that despite this being Chery's new entry-level SUV, things at the back here is still quite nice, especially compared to other B SUVs out there. Alright, despite its small facade, you can see the Tiggo Cross gets a pretty respectable boot space, where you can see you can fit like at least 2-3 large gauge case easily. But unfortunately, because this is a hybrid model, you don't have space for a spare wheel down here, so you need to settle for a tire repair kit instead. Alright, so for the Malaysian market, the Chery Tiggo Cross is available in 2 powertrain flavors, but today we'll be focusing on the HEV model because it uses Chery's new CSH HEV setup comprising a 1.5-litre 4-cylinder petrol engine that is augmented to a dedicated hybrid transmission that harnesses a single electric motor setup rated at 201 horsepower and 310 Nm. This electric motor is enough to make the Tiggo Cross here one of the fastest B SUVs in our market, but more impressive is actually in terms of the fuel economy, because Chery claims this car can do over 1,000 kilometers of range from a single fuel tank and a fuel economy rate of as low as 5.4 liters per 100 kilometers. That's quite impressive. So this is a very economical car for you to have. Alright, the similarities between the Tiggo 7 and Tiggo Cross continues at the back, because you can see it gets almost similar looking rear end as the Tiggo 7, but this car, what's unique is actually the taillight design, because you got this full LED above, but the animation, the light signature inside this car looks very stunning. But other things, you also get this roof mounted spoiler, rear bumper design looks very familiar. In terms of dimension, this car is actually a true B-segment SUV cover, where it sits between the Prodwa Ativa and something like the Proton X50. So this car, although it looks small, it's not really that small, so meaning that it's still good for you and your family. Alright, so those who are interested with the Chery Tiggo Cross can place their registered interest at Chery's booth here at the Malaysia Auto Show 2025, where the first 500 units are slated to be delivered as early as August 15 this year. So if you want to get one of the first Malaysians to get the Tiggo Cross, be sure to come here at Chery booth at the Malaysia Auto Show 2025. Okay, beside the Tiggo Cross, Chery Malaysia is also displaying 2 other CNH models, including both the T7 and T8 plug-in hybrids. Those 2 models might come sometime later this year, so be sure to come here at Malaysia Auto Show 2025 and check out Chery's booth for more things like this.
Save more safe.
Caricarz.